Fuq il-page tal-ata.
Il-page, iva, fuq tal-YMCA Malta.
Intom all right? Kulħadd qed jisma'?
All right.
Okay.
Very well.
Sound all right?
Nixxinna.
Xi kultant qed jinqatali like for a split of a second.
Probably għax din persedin kollha unmuted.
Imma xem delay ta' issa ġeja nibdu.
Okay.
Fuq YMCA Malta żgur qed nibdu. Iċċekki fuq l-event please. Mela, qegħdin live fuq il-page, sakemm nistennew ftit kif ħajn nixxilna immorru live fuq l-event page. Nistgħu nibqgħu nitkellmu ftit.
Mela le?
Nis li stennew 13 minuta jistennew minuti oħra żgur. Mela, konna qed nitkellmu daqsxejn fuq il-perkors professjonali tagħna.
U inti kont qed tgħidilna li għamilt ilek mal-YMCA 10 snin.
10 snin.
10 snin mal-YMCA.
Long time, eh?
Baxxejt is-sound tal-Facebook għax kont qed nifsi ngħid li n-nies jistennew 13 minuta. Mela, għal min qed isegwina aħna qed nintaqgħu Zoom, però qed nagħtu live stream Facebook u hemm 20 seconds delay. Ġifieri hemm daqsxejn technicalities li jridu nieħdu ħsieb. Fl-aħħar naħseb qegħdin live, Dorothy tista' tikkonfermalna. Tajjeb ħafna. Mela, l-ewwel nett thank you talli aċċettajtu l-istudja tagħna. Għandna l-Matthew hawnhekk magħna l-Danica u Nicola. Forsi tintroduċu daqsxejn ilkom infuskom u x'tagħmlu mal-willingness.
Mela le? Jiena Nicola, jiena studjajt psikoloġija u għamilt bosta snin naħdem f'organizations differenti fosthom YMCA. U dal-aħħar 4 snin fuqhom naħdem bħala parti minn Willingness fil-Ġurnata Partner flimkien ma' Danica u Matthew u nħossib events, trainings, proġetti u affarijiet bħal dan l-event tal-lum. Grazzi ħafna tal-istedina Gabriele u tax-xogħol kollu li qed tagħmlu.
Jiena Matthew Bartolo, jiena sex and relationship therapist. Flimkien bħalma qalu ma' Nicola u ma' Danica mexxi tim ta' professjonisti u nagħmlu servizzi differenti fejn dan Willingness. U interessat ħafna anke fuq is-suġġett u l-fatt li Boredom, speċjalment ta' żmien ta' jisu msakrin ġewwa ħafna mill-affarijiet li forsi s-soltu kuntenti nagħmlu u l-mod tagħna kif jgħaddi l-ħin naħħawamna, allura jisna jdu nsibu mod kif we entertain ourselves.
Jiena Danica, l-istorja qiegħda vera simili ta' Nicola. Bħalissa qed ninsab nagħmel masters l-Università l-Ingilterra fuq is-saħħa u s-psikoloġija. U kont naħdem il-YMCA u bħalissa naħdem ukoll bħala partner ma' Willingness flimkien ma' Nicola u Matthew kif diġà ddeskrivejna.
Thanks. So to start off, we'd like to say that we decided to carry out the talk in English for the reason being that we have a lot of friends and partners from the international community where it's needed we also translate in Maltese so that we make sure that everybody can understand what we are discussing. As for myself, I'm Gabriele. I've been working with YMCA for many years now. At the time being, I'm leading the Youth Employment Program and I oversee the internship and volunteering projects that include research, non-formal education, and also outreach. So, to start off, what about boredom? How would you define boredom? Because it seems that in our everyday vocabulary, we mean something which might seem at times a bit trivial, but boredom in psychological terms is something more important.
We generally attribute boredom to having nothing to do, having nowhere to direct your energy. It can be because you are uninterested in whatever is currently happening, or there is nothing exciting that is in your present time or something to look forward to, which is definitely something that I think we can say was one of the things that people felt when the COVID-19 situation came around. When, as Matthew said a few minutes ago, suddenly maybe you have to stay at home because you're working from home, etc. You might have more free time on your hands, and what do you do with that time, especially when you can't engage in normal social activities that you would have beforehand. So it can be described as an empty feeling, and there could be a sense of frustration at the fact that there is this sudden emptiness, if you would see it in that way. And as for where boredom comes from, and kind of when I was looking up a bit more the meaning for it, I found some really interesting research, which I will be also posting on our page after the webinar, which looks at an evolutionary perspective for it, which basically it states, back thousands of years ago in the time of cave dwellers, there wasn't Netflix, there wasn't even language actually, but there was no distractions, and still most likely people were not bored or didn't have the luxury to be bored because they were occupied at all times with surviving, with carving stone, with hunting, with surviving, which meant that they had an obvious meaning for the time that they have during the day. So I found it to be a very interesting point, and in reflecting on it, I thought about how over time things have become easier in the sense that, I don't know, to give an example, we don't need to spend hours washing our clothes by hand. Why? Because we have a machine to do that. We don't need to walk to work or ride a horse. We can get a car and so on, which meant that over time, things got easier and we had more time, more free time, because we had technology and other things to help us. But in modern society, what have we done with that time practically?
So
we've added more things to do in that time. So we've been, nowadays we talk a lot about a very fast-paced life. We don't stop. We're always chasing time. Maybe especially in the local context, this is something we hear a lot at the clinic, for example, from our clients. So what I was reflecting on is, is our meaning attributed to productivity? So once we are now able to be less productive because COVID-19 happened, does it mean that when we had this gap in time, we suddenly felt like we didn't have a purpose, we didn't have a meaning because
sometimes I wonder if we see boredom as something which we should avoid at all costs. Even when our kids say, I'm bored, we stop whatever we're doing and try and stimulate them as soon as possible, because it seems like it's something which is we need to avoid at all costs, boredom.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of the some of the research that I found stated that when our children or even teenagers state that they are bored, it could be their way of explaining that they are uncomfortable with the present situation, that they are unable to describe how they are feeling about a present moment. And sometimes we might, put that off as something trivial because we talk about boredom, but it could be much more than that when we're talking, psychologically. So I would agree with you, Matthew, that sometimes maybe we trivialize it and we do not understand that maybe, I don't know, there's more to it than just, feeling bored. I don't know if you would agree with me.
What I see here is like two things at play. So we have on one side the opportunity to have more leisure time. On the other hand, there is the pressure from our corporate culture, which is ever increasing its influence in our life. So on one hand, we have more time, which we can use in a leisurely way. But on the other hand, we may feel guilty because we are not actually doing something, we are not producing, we are not doing more.
Exactly.
And that can lead to anxiety, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because I think we are valuing ourselves and our self-worth through what we produce.
Yes.
You know, when we meet each other, we ask, "What have you been doing today?" And we feel that we need to recount what we produced during the day.
And many things
When
that
we
we've
ask,
produced.
yes, yes. When we ask, when we ask someone to tell us about themselves, most of the time what they tell us is what they do, not who they
It's
are.
what we just did a few minutes ago, actually.
Yes.
It's true. Yes.
So, you know, sometimes instead of human beings, we are human doers, you know, that we're not just being, but we are all the time doing things. And even, especially in a society like the Maltese one, being busy is glorified. You know, he's very busy. He's a very busy man. She's a very busy person. So I think this even if we look at what we're living right now, I meet a lot of people who were put in a situation where they need to face their demons. Because being busy all the time, being productive all the time, apart from being glorified by society, because the more productive you are, the more you have to talk about things to say, and the more money you make, which is very important nowadays in our society. We are valued by what brands we wear, what cars we drive, what watches we wear, and what lifestyle we afford. And then when we are, apart from that, we are also using this busyness to run away from our demons.
Exactly.
As
In fact, you see people who are baking food, trying different workouts, trying to fill their time as much as possible to avoid being alone with themselves as well. Danica, sorry.
It's okay. What I was gonna say is that it's a method of as a distraction and like an escape, a coping mechanism to escape rather than being with the feeling, which is a normal feeling, like we've been discussing already. It's something that we feel even before COVID. It's something that, for example, if you're taking a break from work and you have, for example, 2 weeks off, you might get bored in this time because even, for example, before you're used to working a lot, like Matthew's saying, being busy and having lots of things to do. But right now, we have a kind of different kind of boredom, in a sense.
Yeah, so sometimes boredom may come from the lack of opportunity in engaging in meaningful activity. I guess, and you were mentioning teenagers and young people. And
Yes.
can affect
Psychologically.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, boredom has a critical message for us, which says we're perceiving the current situation as devoid of meaning. So when it comes to feeling a constant sense of boredom, that might mean that we are expecting or we are most receptive to an external validation from something we are doing, or that we seek sensation-seeking kind of behavior and activities. So when it comes to adolescents, and I apologize for the barking, I have dogs.
They're bored. Their dogs are bored.
They're bored. They're bored of being around. When it comes to adolescents, you know, if there is a constant state of boredom, for example, and even adults, but we asked about adolescents, there might be a risk or a higher risk, and research does agree with this, for risk-taking behaviors. You know, if there is a long-term sense of boredom, if we do not find meaning or purpose in what we are doing, and there is a correlation that relates, you know, a state of boredom with a precursor for anxiety, for depression, for gambling, substance misuse, etc. So this is a reality. And there is also an overlap when looking at symptoms of depression, for example, which is why it's very important to not ignore a teenager or a child or an adult that is constantly complaining with boredom, because if we look at depression, for example, some of the most common symptoms we hear about is lack of interest in daily activities, lack of interest in things we were interested before and now we're not, lack of motivation for doing anything. So there is a bit of an overlap. It is different, of course, but that is why it is important to reflect on it and take this time to assess, is what I'm doing giving me meaning, and what can I be doing with this time for it to give me a sense of purpose. And this is very important for individuals that do not intrinsically or internally have this value or have this ability to say, listen, I am satisfied with what I have accomplished today. I've done 3 things today and I am happy with those 3 things. Or I've done nothing today, but this is exactly what I needed to do to replenish my brain.
Not to be mistaken with people who, when compared to others of their age, haven't accomplished much yet. Really, when we talk about self-worth, when we talk about what Nicola is talking about, I think that sometimes we went overboard by telling everyone that they should have good self-esteem, self-worth.
Exactly.
Because there are people who feel this way, and when they compare their life, what they've achieved not financially or career-wise, what they've achieved even as a person,
exactly.
in themselves.
Exactly.
When they compare it to other people of their age, they see that they haven't. They're not at par with them. And in that case, I think more than helping that person or telling that person to add to their self-worth, I think it's also about, reflecting, how come I haven't achieved so much as a person, as a human being? What have I been missing? What do I need to invest more in? Because I think that that's also important.
Yes.
To add to what Nicola was saying as well, the kind of boring that Nicola is talking about now, the teenager who is lacking meaning maybe in his life. I think what I think of when I hear that is, if you watch horse racing or a football match, okay? And I'm not saying this to condone gambling, but just to make a point and explain what I'm saying. If I had to watch a football game, if I'm not interested in what's going on, chances are I might get bored. Okay? If I'm watching horse racing, hound racing, chances are I'll get bored. If you invest money in that game, if you are gambling on that game, the results of that game become of high interest to you. So then you are logged onto the screen, logged onto what you're seeing to see who's going to win, if you're going to lose or win money out of it. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes, unfortunately, I meet people who are living their life without meaning. And it's like whatever happens, happens, and they are swaying from one thing to the other without investing in it. And the non-investing is not because someone is lazy. The non-investing is sometimes because a person hasn't found their ikigai, their purpose in life. Or because they feel that if they set goals for themselves, they're not going to be able to achieve them.
Yes.
Allora, having meaning and having a structure, especially when it comes to youth, and that's why YMCA have the youth empowerment, because you are helping the youth, the teenager, the young adult, find meaning, find what intrinsically motivates them to wake up in the morning and do something with their day. Do something, not necessarily be productive financially or in the corporate world, but reading, researching, having goals for their own being and improving. So it could be improving your TikTok dance, improving your TikTok following. But it is something which is making you reflect and learn about yourself and what you did in the past and how you can achieve new skills to improve your outcome.
And speaking
if I can
of,
sum up,
yes.
Matthew and Nicola, it seems that it's a matter of values, for sure. And that, unfortunately, it doesn't only depend on the individual. So in the sense, if you're living in a particular environment, family environment, community, and then you are surrounded by social media who are prioritizing other values. So it's not, what I mean is that sometimes it's difficult for the individual to understand his own values and values that are different from his peers, his family, and his culture, actually. So I think it's very difficult. It can be challenging. And also what I wish to add to what you were mentioning, Nicola, I would like to ask if we are always aware that we are bored. So in this sense, is it something common that we are aware that we are actually feeling boredom? Or we may be kind of acting out.
I don't think we are always aware, which is why when we're faced with a situation like COVID-19, we are suddenly like, what's going on?
Yes.
And on this point of social media, what I was researching, and a quote that particularly stuck with me was, when nothing is interesting, neither are we. And what I mean is, especially when talking about social media, teenagers, youth, etc., even adults, I mean, it's the same for most generations. Community over, and this isn't something now, but in the last few years with the existence of YouTube vlogs, Instagram stories, and so on and so forth, we have become a community that watches other people live without necessarily living ourselves. So, for example, I would spend hours watching this particular YouTuber travel, I don't know, redecorate their house, build plants, and we've become a community watching others as a community rather than, I don't know, doing something ourselves. So this is when suddenly COVID-19 is around and we're actually bored of watching these things as well. Now is the peak time to say, Isma, what am I actually doing? Am I filling my time with things that are valuable instead of watching, what's that famous YouTuber that's organizing things? There's, whatever, people know what I'm talking about. Why don't you organize your own, room and redecorate your plants and, find that thing that you are enjoying watching in your own life. But that really stuck with me. When nothing is interesting, neither are we. Like suddenly, not even I am value of being interesting.
Is
and
it
this
about
is
gratification?
the what?
Is it about instant gratification?
It could be, and it's also related to what Matthew was mentioning before, which is the difference between simple boredom and existential boredom. If I'm bored at the moment, or I had a really long day at work and I want to come home and just switch off my brain and watch 2 hours of TikTok videos, that doesn't mean that I'm existentially bored. I'm just chilling. That's idle time. But if I'm, constantly living in the state of living vicariously through others, this is when maybe I want to check in with myself a bit more. And, or for example, and I'm sure a lot of people will, or are currently experiencing this, that I live for the next 2 months when I'm going to travel again. This is what I am constantly waiting for. And now, and I've heard this from all my, of course, friends, as you know, I used to travel a lot as well. So I understand that at some point I understood that, that isn't living if you're just constantly waiting for the next time you're going to travel.
It's postponing living, eh?
Exactly.
Postponing, I will be happy in the weekend. Thank God it's Friday. I need to travel every 2 months, and the moment I come down from the plane coming back home, I'm booking my next flight because that's all I live for.
Rather than thinking about the moment
Exactly.
that you're currently living, you're always either in the future or sometimes in the past as well, dwelling on stuff we did before rather than being focused on what's happening around us, like right that minute.
And then COVID-19 comes and you don't know when you're going to travel again. So a lot of people face this crisis like, oh no, I have nothing to look forward to now. Why, So, yes.
I mean, we can be creative as well. So, for example, like Nicola was saying, like redecorate your room or plant new things. Maybe we don't need to do it exactly like the person is doing. Maybe because we have different resources. So, for example, I don't have my own room for myself. So maybe you can reach a compromise and find creative ways how you can do something for yourself that can give you, like, for example, Gabriele mentioned maybe gratification, and it helps you fight the boredom as well.
I also think that boredom can be an invitation to delve deeper as well.
Yes.
So as I said at the beginning, I work with couples, and even in sex, when you have a couple who tells you we're bored with our sexuality, we're bored as a couple, we don't know what to do. There are couples who would look for outside stimulation, okay? So if it's sex, they're going to try and watch different things, do different things, and learn different things that they can add to what they have already. If it is the normal relationship, they can try and meet new friends, go to classes, and try and think of activities that they can do to add more outdoors, outside stimulation to their relationship. There are couples who decide to be more intimate not physically, but as a couple. So they delve deeper into their being as a relationship, as a couple. And individually, I think it is the same. If you are feeling bored, you could spend some time getting to know yourself. You could either look out there for more stimulation, or look inwards and learn more about yourself. But learning more about yourself, the intimacy, getting to know more yourself, is scary for most of us. And it's scary for most of us because when we stay alone with ourselves and we look inwards rather than outwards, we will be faced with what we've been chasing all along. So I'm meeting people, I'm meeting clients, and I've been through it, and I am going through it myself, where when I spend time alone and not go on my mobile to follow TikTok, Instagram, watch another Netflix series, and just be, the thoughts, the fears, the insecurities start coming up. Am I enough? What should I be doing right now? Did I make the right decision back then when I did that? What do people think about me? And then if you combine that with what you were saying earlier, watching other people live their life, then it's very easy for me to see in other people what I don't have or what I think I don't have, compare it, and feel even worse about myself. So if I feel that I am not happy and I'm seeing all these people laughing and dancing and doing whatever, I might project onto them that they have the kind of life and the kind of presence that is missing in my own life. And I feel even worse about myself. So just being with myself and recognizing these aspects of myself and thinking about them and spending enough time to feel scared and to feel angry at myself and to feel bored and alone, then with myself, I can even learn to love myself, even these parts of myself. Because yes, these things maybe are missing, or maybe I'm not where I want to be yet, but it could be my meaning, it could be my purpose in the next couple of months in my life, to seek what makes me more content, to take away from my life what is stopping me from being content.
Matthew, may I ask a very direct question, kind of? What would you suggest for people? Like, what would you suggest for people to embrace solitude, to make it easier for us to embrace solitude? Because if I understand it correctly, that's like the key here. So we have more time to spend in solitude, but we are afraid of that. and we are using other means to find instant gratification, to escape from ourselves and from the ones around us, our families and friends.
If I had to think about myself, I travel a lot alone. And I would say that when I talk to my clients about it, when I suggest to my clients, I'm feeling alone, spend more time with yourself. It sounds crazy. I'm telling you, I'm feeling lonely. And you're asking me to spend more time alone. You're asking me to go out for a coffee alone. You're asking me to go to the theater alone. But I just told you I feel lonely. And this is how I deal with life. So what I'm going to say, it doesn't resonate with everyone. And there will be people who will say, this doesn't work for me. I've tried it, it doesn't work. But when we resist something, in my opinion, as a human being, I feel that the more I resist it, the more I'm scared of it, the more it makes me angry, the more I need to face it. Because once I face it, then I learn that it's okay to do it. So the more I'm scared to go out for a drink alone, to go for coffee alone, because when I see other people alone, I feel pity for them. I say, Miskin, he's alone. When you do it yourself, the first couple of times it's going to be awkward. And most of the people who will try it will go and get their mobile. And once they get their mobile, they've lost it. Because really and truly, what they confirmed in their mind is, it was a very scary 5 minutes. And then I got my mobile and I felt better. What I'm asking people to do here is stay with that fear. Stay with that awkward feeling, that discomfort. And you will realize sooner rather than later that it's okay to be alone. That you will enjoy your own company. You will enjoy your own thoughts. And the more you sit comfortable in that cafeteria alone, drinking that coffee, you start to learn that the coffee tastes better because you're investing time tasting that coffee. That you will learn more things about your body and how your body reacts to that coffee and to the people around you and to the chair you're sitting on. And maybe people who haven't tried it will think I'm crazy and I'm talking nonsense. But once you try it, it's so liberating. And I've had clients who tried it and they come back and say, after trying it a couple of times, it is very liberating because nowadays I join my friends for coffee if I feel like their company. I don't need my friends to travel. I can travel by myself. And staying with that feeling can make you feel stronger as a person, and stronger because you learn to love yourself. It's fascinating how we are more willing to meet new people on dates and explore new bodies, explore new psyches, new minds of other people, but not willing to invest so much investing our own. So what I suggest is try and spend time with yourself. Take yourself out on a date. Stay indoors and pamper yourself and listen to music and be alone and read. And that way you're starting to learn more about yourself and those thoughts and those fears, those demons that we are so scared of, okay, you will make peace with them.
And even if you
answer your question, Gabriele?
Yes. I would like to link what you said earlier, Nicola, and saying now, Matthew. So there is choice here. So it's a key element. So we can choose to be alone, which is quite different to being lonely because of lack of a community around you, friends, or else with regard to elderly people. So I think it's important to make this difference and also to be more aware of the meaningful connections so that when we are alone, so I'll speak for myself. I'm alone at home, but I'm watching a video. We're not alone, I guess. So there's a difference being really alone with yourself and being without other people but still not alone. You can be with like in a, I don't know, in a cafeteria, surrounded by people, as you said, but you are immersed in your thoughts and in your reflections. So
it's like the lack of distractions, like the lack of the external distractions to keep you connected with yourself, kind of.
yes, yes, yes. And I feel very strongly about this. So the fact that we are always connected. We are always connected.
Especially nowadays with social
Yes,
media,
yes.
it's quite easier to be so connected with others, but then with ourselves, we're not connected. That, like how Matthew was saying, when you find yourself alone, you wouldn't know how to be with yourself alone. Like, what do you do? Do I do this? Do I do that? You know, because we're so used to possibly going out with friends or families that when even, for example, the first 10 minutes when you're alone, you're like, how do I act? Where do I look? What do I do? You know?
So what we're saying is that boredom can be, you know, a motivator to look inwards rather than seeking outwards. But in order to do that, we need to, as you were saying, Gabriele, not give in to this need to be gratified instantly.
Like own the discomfort. The discomfort is what will help you grow. You know, if you stick through that 10 minutes of, my God, I'm alone, people think I'm a loser because I'm by myself. Once you get over that, that is when then you are relaxed with yourself. And this is when, you know, your brain replenishes. This is where creativity comes from, because then you are no longer distracted with either actual distractions, videos, other people, etc., and neither your negative thoughts that you are telling yourself because you're not being productive or you're alone, or you know. And yes, on the positive side of boredom, you know, once you get over this part, this is then the creativity part, and being able to, you know, be creative, think outside the box, think about what you want to do, think about the meaning of the things that you are doing. So it's just a matter of getting over that part. And it doesn't mean that you can't fill your time with other things and exercising, and all of those are practical tips that we can discuss and go over. And but it's the real part of getting over this discomfort, I think, is what Matthew was saying, is that's the most important part.
And of course, it depends on who we're talking about as well. So if a person at this point in time is struggling with any kind of addiction, of course, it is very important that they do fill their day so that they are not alone with the cravings and with these urges for a very long time. It doesn't mean that they can't start slowly with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of alone time, but it needs to be managed in a different way from someone who is living alone and isn't facing their addiction in their own flat, in their own house. Okay, so someone who's a porn addict, a gambling addict, an online gaming addict, obviously you try to fill your day as much as possible so that you try and stay away from that addiction as much as possible. Doesn't mean that with some help, with some guidance and containment, you can't start investing in some alone time as well. So this is the other side of boredom. Another side of boredom is in psychotherapy. So we meet people in psychotherapy where we suggest that they get bored. Okay, that they get bored of saying the same story. So when we think, for example, someone who's been through a trauma, and in these sessions we hear this story time and time again, until there comes a time when they don't want to say the story anymore. People who went through a separation, and every session they keep saying how their ex-partner hurt them. And you can see that there is a progress in this story. So when they are recounting their story, first there is this feeling of hurt. This is what he did. He hurt me so much. I invested so much. He didn't acknowledge. He didn't appreciate. And then the story, although they are saying the same story, the focus is on different parts of that story. You know, the bastard did this. I'm so much better without him. This is how I feel about him right now. And you can see the anger coming out. And then they keep saying the same story session after session, and they are saying, it's true, I am missing, I am at a loss at times during the weekend because I'm spending time alone and I miss time with him. And when I was with him, we used to go to these parties, etc. But now I'm finding more joy in reading. I'm finding more joy in chatting to new people. So although they are saying the story, we see that it's evolving until they come to a space where, you know what, I'm tired of saying this story. I don't want to say this story anymore. And you can see that the story starts getting shorter and shorter with less details because it's not important anymore.
It loses its meaning.
Now, yes, and you can see this in children as well. When a boy falls, all right, if you pick him up and, oh, poor boy, look what happened, you know, and you're engaging with the first feeling, the shock, he is going to get stuck there. And chances are he has a better chance of being scared of running again, being scared of going on the bike. But if you kneel down next to him, what happened? Oh, because I fell and I hurt and now I'm shocked because I was running and all of a sudden I see the floor. And then, yes, and then what happened? And this floor, this stupid floor, it hurt me, this stupid floor. And then after some time, okay, I need to go and play now. He's bored of saying the story. He made peace with it. He doesn't need to keep recounting it. So now he's ready to go and play. So what did he do there? He processed it while saying the story, and now he's bored of the story. He moves on to the rest of his life. So sometimes boredom in therapy especially is okay. It shows that there was progress in what the person was fighting against or trying to deal with.
And I think when talking about kids, other important areas that I found was that kids need time to be bored. You know, sometimes I think, especially in today's society, we are a bit obsessed with filling even our children's times with all kinds of activities to make sure that they don't miss out on any kind of talent or skill. And sometimes, you know, kids need time to be bored. This is how creativity is born. This is how we start to imagine our future and what things we want to do in it. And one very interesting TED Talk that I followed, which I will also be sharing after, said, you know, that whether it's for children or for adults, boredom gives us the possibility to imagine the future we have been dreaming about. How many times do we say, you know, in 5 years, I really want to have achieved this? But how much time do we actually spend thinking about, okay, what do I need to get there? Let's start bit by bit on these goals, because this is what's giving me meaning, not all the other things I'm doing. So I agree with Matthew a lot that whether it's in therapy, whether it's a personal experience that you've come over by yourself, you know, it's growth. It's definite growth.
We are seeing this even in our partners' working sessions. You know, Wednesdays, the three of us meet to do some admin work and try to catch up with the rest of the week and plan things and meetings and way forwards and all this. And lately, because, you know, things are slower, there were times when we met at a pool, where we met in a garden, where we did planting together. And whilst we were there saying, Ismail, so we haven't much things to do, we were also using that time to reflect on what we've been doing up to now. And from boredom comes creativity as well. So we realized, me and Nicola, more than Danica, even Danica to be honest, that we can fool about and use some kind of design. And we are doing some of our design ourselves. Not because we can't get someone else to do it, but we had some time on our hands. And I remember in the very first weekend where it hit us all that we can't go out. We had just been through a very busy 2 months, because February and March for all us at Willingness are too much. And I think we need to admit that. And then this happened. The weekend of our conference, there was this coronavirus first victim, unfortunately, and we were locked inside. and we were, how are we going to spend our time? And we were fooling about with some ideas and trying to be creative. And some of us are trying planting, others are trying different work with designs and graphic design. So what am I saying? That with boredom, with slowing down, sometimes it's an invitation to look inwards. And when you look inwards, you can see that creativity starts coming out. And creativity is your psyche, your subconscious and unconscious, bringing out different aspects of yourself.
I really appreciate these examples, and if I can sum up, this means that if we are aware of boredom, it's actually a call to action. It's positive. It's a positive feeling. I would like to go forward with some questions which are related to the physical and health aspects of people who might be going through persistent periods of boredom. Maybe Danica can answer this since she's a trainee health psychologist. What are the major effects of persistent feelings of boredom?
So, like we've been saying already, we react differently to different stimuli. And there can be negative consequences and positive outcomes. So I'm going to start with the positive outcome. So for example, we can be more physically active. And in this case, currently we can't go to the gyms because they're closed. We can't go to open spaces yet because they're closed. But we can be creative, like we were talking before, creative in our own home, how we can be more physically active. So for example, if I'm doing the laundry and I'm folding the clothes, or else taking the clothes out of the basket and putting them in the washing machine, I can put the basket a bit further away, so I have a couple of steps to make until I load the washing machine. So like that one, you would be being a bit more physically active, because when we're bored, we tend to sit more, like to watch television, nap more. So whilst doing chores, we can be creative and would be one doing physical activity whilst also killing time, you know, kind of. For negative things, we might find ourselves eating or overcooking or overbaking, and we would constantly find ourselves in the kitchen, and we would know that we're opening the fridge for the 20th time of the day to snack. So we might end up using food as a method of distraction to help us fight with boredom. I don't know if that answered your question.
Pretty much. If you could maybe explain what are the difference between, if there are any difference between the health, physical health and mental health effect.
Okay. So both physical and mental health, they're very dependent on each other. And so for example, if we're not being physically active, it might impact our mental health. We might feel maybe more anxious or more sad. So basically they can impact differently, but at the same time they can impact each other. Mental health, maybe we might be bored, like before we were talking about thoughts, we might find ourselves thinking more about negative thoughts, like for example how Nicola was saying, why am I not doing this, why I'm not doing that. We might feel guilty. We might start and how Matthew was saying, looking inwardly on ourselves and kind of looking down on ourselves for not doing enough, which in turn feeds a negative idea.
Thank you, Danica. We have a few questions here from the people who are following us. I think two of them can be linked because one of the followers is asking the difficulty sometimes of understanding boredom, and also our challenge in feeling at ease with ourselves when we are constantly being exposed to happy people, which most of the time they are not really happy. It's how we project, what we choose to project from our own life, you know, on social media, because this is about social media here.
As I was saying earlier, that when we are alone, we tend to look outward. And when we look outward, unfortunately, we're projecting our own insecurities. So if we had to watch the same feed on Facebook, the four of us, we will observe different things. So apart from the fact that if all four of us watch the same feed, we will be observing and thinking about different things and different aspects of the same posts. Facebook and Google don't help because of their algorithms, we keep getting what we like. You know? So that is obviously reinforcing our subconscious insecurities. So if I love cars and I'm always trying to compare my car to other people's cars, to use a simple example, what will Facebook do? It will start giving me adverts of new cars, trying to add me onto different groups by proposing them. I will be seeing more and more comments and posts about cars, and it will always confirm that I don't have the best car. And that is just an example, okay? A very simple example, because when we talk about insecurity, it's about how I feel about my body, how I feel as a man. Okay, what is a man? What kind of man do I click on when I am looking at Facebook, Instagram, and all the others? And because I am not feeling man enough, which is another problem in our society, that no one feels enough. And when you get that I'm not enough with the corporate and the productive society, then we are literally rats running and trying to get to the end, but the end is never there, right? Then it's still reinforcing the idea that I'm not enough. So I'm seeking outward for reassurance. But really, truly, what is happening? I'm still reconfirming the anxiety, the insecurity that I already have. As a very simple example, someone who makes €1,000 a month hangs out with a certain group of people, and they try to compete with different things, their body, their money, whatever. Let's talk about money because it's easier to explain. The moment that person goes up to 1,500 a month, he's socializing with a different group of people. So if the €50 polo shirt used to make him feel average, now the group of people he's with need to buy a €100 polo shirt. The moment he starts making €5,000 a month, then the average is a different priced, a more expensive polo shirt. Why am I saying this? Because the problem is not what I have done, what I have achieved, that I don't have enough. The problem is that I feel that I'm not enough and that I'm comparing with other people. So I'm getting my self-worth by what I'm wearing in this case. So it will never be enough, because then you can get tailor-made designer wear. And where does it end? And this is just one example with clothes. It could be about masculinity. What kind of man am I comparing myself to? What kind of woman am I comparing myself to? And we see this in relationships again, where we are never happy with the person we're with. Because we always have this idea that we need someone more attractive, someone more sexy, someone wilder, someone younger to feel that we are enough. Because we need the validation of the people around us, because when we look inwards, we're scared.
Thank you, Matthew. If you can maybe answer another question or explore another question, someone is asking, how do I distinguish boredom from fear? So can I be feeling fearful towards a situation, but actually I'm bored, or the other way around?
Can you ask that again?
So if one perceiving his feeling as boredom, but actually being fear, reality.
It could be because, as we discussed earlier, a fear of one's own thoughts. So the idea of being bored is that we are doing as much as possible to ignore whatever it is that is causing us anxiety or that is causing us to feel, I don't know, a bit out of sorts. So then whatever that activity is that we are doing to distract ourselves, that is what we are then attributing to being bored. I don't know if you agree with me, Matthew and Danica, but I think that this could be what this person is asking, is it because I am actually bored or because I am afraid of something? And for example, let me give an example. I have to deliver a public speech in 3 weeks' time. And this is something that scares me, right? So preparation of the speech because I am afraid of this situation. So I am filling my time with things because I am bored, but it's actually because I am distracting myself from feeling anxious about this hypothetical presentation, for example. I don't know if you agree with me, Matt.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. I think it is about facing our fears. It is about being, sometimes it is about just being and being in that fear, being in that boredom.
Rather than running away from them and distract them, like we've been saying all along, being in the moment and being with ourselves rather than running away or busying ourselves with something that will result in us avoiding what we're fearing.
So I think unless there's more questions, I think in what we're saying here is there are different kinds of boredom, and one of the boredom is the superficial boredom where we find bored, and there we are inviting people to look inwards. Don't grab your mobile. Don't go on Netflix immediately. Don't go on TikTok immediately. Spend some time with that boredom. See what your boredom is telling you. Okay? Is it about wanting to be more creative? Is it about your mind needing to preserve itself and invest more energy in itself? You were talking about depression, and sometimes staying in bed all day is important because it is your psyche taking care of itself, replenishing itself. And then when we talk about boredom in psychotherapy, it is also part of the progress. So when you're feeling bored, it is important to keep going at it, keep what you're doing and keep attending sessions. Why? Because that boredom is showing that you are towards the end of therapy. And now you are very close to making peace with your past or whatever you were scared of or was worrying you. And then there is also the boredom, which is coming from not feeling good enough. So I won't push myself more because I am scared that I will not succeed. So I'd rather be bored and not invest in my life instead of investing and risking failing.
Are there any concluding remarks or maybe points which we didn't touch upon? Because we need to start wrapping up slowly. And also waiting for other questions from people who are watching us. So keep them coming.
I think from my end, kind of what I looked into the most was, the meaning that we are giving our time, and that it is okay to not be producing, and it is okay to be producing as long as we are checking in with ourselves every once in a while, being a bit self-aware on what it is that we are finding purpose in, and whether there is something that we can work on to make our time more valuable without producing, without external validation, and other areas that it is a chance to grow, to be creative, to expand on whatever it is that we want to develop in our lives. And in times like this, where of course COVID-19 brought an initial state of shock, an initial state of panic, and then an initial nothingness, at least for me, that's how I understood it, at least for the Maltese context, you know, it was a perfect time, if we can find any silver lining in this situation, to check in with ourselves on specifically this. What was it? What were the first things that went out of our schedules? Were they necessary to be there? You know, are we going to put them back? Because for example, the gym, I will be putting back because that had meaning for me, but something else, maybe not. And I think the other point for me as a concluding remark is the awareness of the psychological implications, whether you were a parent and your child is bored, that there is a space for them to be allowed to be bored, and you know, to explain that boredom is okay. You don't need to be producing all the time. This is the time to play, be creative, be idle, because idleness is a choice and is important. Matthew earlier mentioned, you know, that it is okay to fill your time to, if there are certain cravings, if there are certain difficulties. So, you know, not one recipe fits every craving. You know, there are different people that need different things for that present moment. So I think for me, that would be the overall concluding statement, if I may.
Thank you.
I mean, like Nicola's saying, we don't need to make big gestures, like, or big revelations about ourselves. It can be something small, like, oh, I like doing this, or discovering that I'm more comfortable, for example, working in a different space. Look, for example, I'm more comfortable working from the kitchen rather than from the desk. So they don't need to be very, very large discoveries about ourselves. What I would like to add is that how we're saying being comfortable with the feeling, we need to be careful as well to consider our physical health and not take it for granted. And maybe we can do small things, like, for example, how I mentioned before, of the laundry basket, or whilst you're washing the sink, you put the plates, you put on a song and you dance to it. Like small things that can help us move around and can make our time a bit more entertaining, maybe, rather.
Importanti, if you're doing that, record it and put it on TikTok, come on. As bħalissa, even our team is all commenting in our chats about, because lately I am watching, I just had an account on TikTok and I'm watching TikTok. So the team are commenting about me mentioning TikTok.
That we had to mention it before.
So if you're dancing on the table, like Danica is saying, record it and put it on TikTok.
I mean, not necessarily on the table, you know, you can do it while touching still. But something like something different, something creative that can make you feel happy, being comfortable in your own presence, and also something to kill time.
But and for what you said about these small steps, I think that's very important.
Yes.
For us to start whatever, but in this case, I think it's very important.
Yes, so, because if we're gonna say, for example, I want to be physically active, okay, and we're always constantly thinking about the gym, it might be a big step to do, or for example, at the moment it's not available. So rather than focusing on something and not getting to it, maybe we can be creative with what resources we have that we can use, and the bigger step will be broken down in smaller steps that will eventually lead you there.
Yes, and these tips, we've shared also a bit more practical tips, etc., in blogs and videos, etc., on our page, just in case. I'm seeing that there's a lot of comments for practicalities, etc. We're also sharing those on our page.
That's great.
So if anyone is looking for further resources, that's available on our media. And also, our team came together at the start of the COVID situations, and we found solace and community in, you know, in resources and practical information on how to deal with the situation as well. So for anyone that might be finding it more difficult, there are resources available as well, and you can contact us on our platforms as well, just in case there's anyone that needs any further support.
But also try and stay with the boredom. These two things might sound conflicting, but It is because we are talking about two different kinds of boarding as well. Thanks a lot, Gabriele.
You're welcome.
Yes.
It's
Very
my
happy
pleasure.
to
It was my
ħafna,
pleasure.
ħafna.
Anka
It's my
jena.
pleasure. Our pleasure. I would like to close this talk, first of all, by saying that this is the first from a series of talks that we'll be having with various stakeholders in the social field and also other collaborators. Next one up is going to be on Wednesday 13. The facilitator for the next session will be Nicola and Danica, who is YMCA CEO and also a psychotherapist, Gestalt psychotherapist, and he will be joined by two other psychotherapists. But find more information soon on the YMCA Malta page. For those who are feeling lonely and would like to have a friendly chat, we have a loneliness response line. So I will share with you the number. You can either just send a text or else do a missed call and we will call you back. One of our team members will call you back. 9928655. Great.
Thank you ħafna, Gabriele, and keep it up.
you.
Very good work. Meta trid, għajdilna u nerġa' nagħmlu xi ħaġa simili.
Yes. And on behalf of the Willingness team, they're sharing in the chat as well that we all want to thank you as well for all the work that you're doing and this kind of, community, bringing people together to discuss these topics. It's a wonderful opportunity to come together, So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye.